We have 78 in the waiting room.
Yeah, I see. Oh, we lost a few. Oh, I guess they're gone.
Welcome, welcome, welcome in everyone. Welcome to Care Concierge with Care Patrol, where education is the heart of everything we do. We appreciate you spending this hour with us. If you're new to us or new to Care Patrol might be best described as something like a healthcare realtor. We share options with clients, tour them in communities if community placement is appropriate, and are paid by those communities if they move in. We're not paid for our help with many of our clients who need other services like nursing home care or dialysis clinics or home health or hospice agencies. But nonetheless, we help everyone that comes to us. And part of what we do and that we want to do to give back is to provide these CEU contact hours to you, which we've been doing since 2022 online. We're accredited by the Alabama Board of Social Work. We're also accredited by the Alabama Board of Nursing. The Alabama Board of Social Work tells us that because we have a password protected evaluation, meaning that you must sit for the whole hour to take the evaluation, that this hour counts as a live hour or a classroom hour. So our evaluation process is a password protected evaluation. I will give you the link now. I know some of our regulars are not looking at a screen, and there are those who will see this on YouTube. So for you, the link is https colon // www.surveymonkey.com /lowercase r / all uppercase letters with numbers Z as in zoo, S as in Sam, 5 W R R2. That is today's link. Listen for the password at the conclusion today. We would like today to have you hold your questions until the end. You can go ahead and put them in the chat as they occur to you, and I'll ask them at the end of today's presentation. We have a lot of material to cover, and we're very pleased to welcome a new presenter with us, Peter Jackson, who will describe to us his experience over the last dozen or so years running Grief Share. So, Peter, the floor is yours, and we look forward to hearing everything you have to say.
Well, thank you very much, Sean. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very appreciative. As a matter of fact, I have a daughter who is an RN and another relative who's in the social work industry. So they may be here and I don't know it. But if they are, hello. We're going to start out with just a little bit. And as Sean said too, if you will hold those questions, because we're going to try and fly through 14 weeks of material in less than an hour. So, but I will definitely get to your questions at the end. A little bit about me. I'm from the South, that is the South side of Chicago, and moved to Texas to go to college. Got a bachelor's and master's degree at the University of North Texas in Denton, Texas. For a brief few years, I taught junior high and high school students. I also taught at the college level for 3 years and played professionally as a musician. Got out of that business, both the music and the education biz, and entered sales, which is where I've been ever since. Currently, I own a company here in Birmingham that supplies the offices with paper products, whatever they need in terms of mailing. That's envelopes, letterhead, that kind of thing, labels. I was introduced to grief, if you will, I didn't solicit it. It was when my late wife of 34 years passed away 13 years ago from a sudden and massive hemorrhagic stroke. That was on a Monday evening, and by the time Friday rolled around, there were no life signs left, any residual breathing, residual brainwave, and residual reflex had ceased to function, and we had to make the difficult decision to remove life support. So I went through a program called Grief Share that's a friend of mine had recommended who lost his wife about 6 months earlier, and this program helped me really kind of save my life in more ways than one. So we're gonna, as I said, go through 14 weeks of a program that we're gonna condense down to about an hour or less. So here we go. And by the way, we all have, as you can see on the screen, I assume everybody sees this. We all have one thing in common. Let me see if I can minimize this. Oh, there we go. We all have one thing in common. And if I were to ask you and you were to raise your hand and answer the question, I'm not sure what you would say, but the fact of the matter is this. We're all going to end up in a box like this at some point in time, or maybe a smaller box, depending on the situation, and or we'll know somebody that has passed away, and it's a very, very, very difficult journey to go through. And the good news is that this Grief Share organization and some of the things I'm going to share with you from Grief Share do provide tools and resources so that the grief experience can be managed by the grieving person and controlled by them rather than grieving controlled, being controlled and managed by the grief itself. The key components of the Grief Share program, really in its simplicity, it's almost deceiving. There's a study guide, a video, and a group discussion. And when you combine all three of those elements, it's what has been determined to be the most successful grief recovery program of its kind over the past almost 30 years. It is an international program. It is a Bible-centric program. That's one of the elements of recovery that are provided. And it's for anyone who's lost a spouse, a parent, a sibling, or a child. Get through that process and hopefully arrive, and I do believe will arrive at that proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. Course outcomes, I know you're interested in that. And there's probably three primary or priority for this group course outcomes, and they're highlighted here in yellow. The first is to be able to appreciate what is referred to as the new normal. And that's something that a grieving person that has lost a loved one enters into and will be for the rest of their lives. You'll also be able to comprehend what there is to live for after the loss. Some people's lives, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, in more ways than one, end after the loss of a loved one, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But you'll get a better understanding of what people can live for and how to live and move forward, not forgetting the loved one, but just moving forward and being successful in life from that point. Also, I have some information at the very end of the presentation, a couple of slides of referrals that if you want to take pictures of, you're more than welcome to. I think we're going to be able to provide them to you after the presentation is over, but there's some really, really good reference sources of various kinds that I believe at one point or another you'll probably be able to take advantage of. So, again, hopefully you'll have a better understanding of what the grieving people are going through, how you can help them, and develop a sense of sympathy, empathy, and again, provide them with tools of help as they go along their journey. We all would like grief to be a smooth journey from start to finish. Unfortunately, it's not. As you can see, this line on the left in this image on the left side of the screen, you start at the left end and move to the right end, and it's a smooth road, and you're recovered. Nobody knows how long that road takes because the grief journey is different in length for everyone. Unfortunately, the grief journey actually looks like this tangled ball of emotions, or these squiggly lines on the right. That's actually how it works. It's a roller coaster, and I hate to use that kind of overused almost expression, but it's true. you end up taking two steps forward and one step backward, and this goes on for quite a while. So it is definitely a ride. So it is a challenge, and it's something that has to be worked through. The emotions that one experiences in the process, as you can see here in this next image, there's many of them. Some of them are denial, feeling abandoned by the one that they loved that's no longer with them, guilt, and we'll talk about how the surviving people can feel guilty. Anxiety, of course, which can lead to other things that we'll also discuss. Naturally, loneliness. I mean, there's a myriad, as you can see. And again, it is a roller coaster. The result in the first few weeks or months is a almost a total state of confusion. By that I mean that the proverbial example of getting up to get something in another room, and you get to that room and you forget why you went there to get and what it was you were going to get. That happens all the time. You can't remember where you set your keys down. You can't remember people's names. You forget this, that, and everything else. And that is common and ordinary and nothing to be concerned about. It does go away once the initial shock period is kind of over, which is anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And I've just lost my screen. Let me see if I can. Sean, all of a sudden I see everybody's face, but I don't see my.
Go back to share your screen, maybe. Look back on the presentation.
Let's try that. Okay, I think we're back.
We're back. Yes.
Okay. So the journey looks like of grief looks like a mess, and it's this tangled ball of emotions, and it is definitely a complicated affair. But we've entered a new normal, and what does this new normal look like? Well, as I mentioned, there's a lot of confusion and forgetfulness. Folks will wake up and their grief is still there from day to day. 30 minutes after they wake up, they're still at the bathroom sink, maybe with their toothbrush in their hand and, just kind of standing there, not knowing what to do or how to do it. They can't remember their coworker's name. Tears come without warning. The knife in their heart or stomach twists and turns, and other people just don't get it if they haven't been through it. They go about their days as if nothing's changed. How long is it going to be like this? That's their question. They don't know if they can make it through sometimes. I think one of or three of the big takeaways here are that there is no specific length of time that a person grieves, and I'll probably repeat this numerous times through the presentation. A person generally will be kind of over the hump of grief, or the what I call the initial period of shock after about 3 months, 3 to 6 months, and in the next 6 months or so, they'll be working their way down that journey of recovery. So, in most cases, it lasts about a year. It never will go away entirely, and we'll talk about that too. But kind of a year. But if somebody ends grieving in as little as 6 months, or maybe it takes 2 years, they should not feel guilty because that is what is normal for them. Grief is an individual journey. There are also no set number of phases of grief. There's books out there, the 4, 5, 6, 7 different phases of grief. One of those, for example, that I've seen is anger. And in many cases, anger is defined as anger at God. I did not experience anger at God. I didn't think that was a good choice to make. But if someone reads those books and does not, for whatever reason, experience one of those phases, they do not need to feel guilty or that there's some sort of shortcoming that they haven't experienced it. They will eventually get to that proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. So, in summary, in just one sentence, there is no perfect way to grieve. It's very simple. What are some of the individual challenges? And I've experienced these, having lost my late wife 13 years ago. I did the same thing. Lash out at friends because they keep pushing me or pushing the grieving person to move on. That's a common phrase that's used. Or a grieving person will get to the store and maybe the 20-minute drive to the store they is a blank in their memory. Their mind was someplace else. There's scattered thoughts, nausea, even potentially other effects on the physical system, rapid heartbeat, arrhythmia, that kind of thing. And they may wonder if they're going crazy. I can say from personal experience that when I discovered that my wife and I received a phone call that she had collapsed, and at the time I didn't know why or the reason why, and I rushed to the ER. And then, of course, the ensuing week until we had to let her go, I was up that week 112 out of 120 hours. I was awake, and it's just an incredible journey. But in any event, I'm getting a little off topic here. One thing to remember, and this is a good phrase as well. Uh, a grieving person, the more they love, the more they're going to grieve. They shouldn't feel bad about grieving. They shouldn't restrict their grieving. And if they have kids, they should let their kids see them grieving because the kids need to know that it's okay to grieve. They also shouldn't try not to play the what if game, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But that's what if I had not asked them? Maybe they were in an automobile accident and they were asked to come over for a visit, and they were in an accident and died as a result. The what ifs if I hadn't asked them to come over, or what if something physically was ailing them and you just didn't put a lot of weight on it, and now you feel regret because you didn't bring it to their attention or recommend that they see a doctor. So these kind of things can really go down rabbit trails that are not necessary. The other thing and challenge of grief too is, I guess, withdrawal of the grieving person from their friends and family, which is something, it's a warning sign. It's something to keep an eye out for on your part to see if they are starting to, withdraw and not connect with family and friends as they had before. Uh, Also, there's sleep, diet, and exercise are considerations. Some folks in the grieving process they won't be able to sleep. Other folks will sleep too much, trying to escape the loss. Diet's something to be concerned with, though. We need to make sure that they're eating a balanced diet, that they're not just snacking on junk food or processed foods, and it's having an adverse impact on their health, and that they're staying somewhat active and getting a little bit of exercise. And of course, the worst thing that can happen that accompanies the anxiety is that it turns into depression, and that depression may result in an attempt or a successful attempt, if you will, of suicide. And sadly, the 12 years I've done Grief Share, I would say the last half of that, we have seen a noticeable uptick in deaths as a result of suicide. So it's something to be sensitive for. You really have to keep your ear to the ground. There's resources on the internet as to what to look for. And it's hard because so many of the people that do commit suicide seem not to exhibit. Some do, many do, but there's a lot of others that do not. Um, so, the pain of grief, will it be intense for the rest of their life? No, it really won't. As time passes, the grief will lessen. There's an old saying that time heals all wounds, and to an extent that's true, but as you know, there's still a scar. And that scar is something that serves as a reminder. So it never does go away completely, but I tell my classes that the memories and pictures and things that remind you of your loved one that's no longer here, those memories that send you into a tailspin and make you cry, will the same things down the road of recovery will bring a smile to your face. And that's the sign of recovery. And that's actually something when it starts to happen, a recovering person should not be embarrassed about or regret. They're actually moving down the road of recovery. They're able to see a picture of their loved one, and instead of just breaking out in tears, which I didn't cry, I wailed. I mean, it was loud. They'll break out into a smile. It'll bring a smile to their face, and that's reassuring and something they can look forward to. So again, the things that bring a tear to their eye now or in the early stages of grief will eventually bring a smile to their face. Um, Press the button here. Goals. There's some things that can be done to help move a person forward. Uh, they've started this journey, and it's not a trip they planned, but it's a trip they've got to take. And there's several factors that'll help them shape their journey that they can take intentional steps in doing to result in a healthier, healing direction. They can keep a journal. Journal's great. I know a lot of ladies out there keep diaries or have in the past. I know my late wife did a daily journal, diary, call it what you like. It's not something probably that a lot of guys do, but I kept one for about a year after my wife passed. And you can write down things that what you're feeling. You can talk to your loved one through your journal. You can write messages to God and speak to Him. I mean, there's any number of things, but you can just let everything out and let it out on paper, and it's quite a catharsis. And when one looks back 6 or 12 months later on those entries, it's amazing to see the progress that takes place over a period of time. Grief Share, the program, actually has at the end of each of the 14 chapters has a progress chart that measures progress in terms of physical, mental, and spiritual progress, and several different silos. And if you're able to flip through all 14 weeks on just that one page, you'd see the check marks for how a person is feeling from not good at all or poor to feeling really pretty good. You'll see those check marks move to the good side or the right side if you were able to, in time lapse, go through 14 weeks of those charts. So a journal is a very good thing to keep. Music as well. Music has a psychological effect. I believe it's called the doctrine of ethos, if I'm not mistaken. Different types of music have different effects on the body and the mind and the spirit. So listening to favorite music or upbeat music is good. Of course, we talked about exercising, eating, and sleeping, trying to keep those balanced. Socialization, that's kind of hard, but it's necessary and it's part of the work of recovery is getting out and not withdrawing and losing contact with family and friends and forcing yourself to go out, even if it's just to go out to a restaurant where there's other people, where you're around other people. Another thing is developing a new hobby. That's useful. And then this sounds a little trite, but I can say from personal experience that a pet is an extremely, I mean, when I lost my late wife, Kathy is her name, my kids were, I was an empty nester. So all that was me there was me and my dog, Callie. And I'm not sure how quickly or how well I would have gotten through the grief had it not been for Callie. So, a pet of any kind can kind of take one's mind off things and provide them with an additional communication channel. There will be people that will try and rush a grieving person through their grief. Uh, don't fall into that trap. Don't let someone fall into that trap. The easiest way to handle that is to simply just say thank you and walk away or forget about it. People feel like they have to say something to a grieving person, and as a result, they 9 times out of 10 end up saying something they shouldn't. So, people will try and rush a person through grief because they don't like to see the person uncomfortable, and it's something that can't be rushed. Whatever that timetable is for that person, that's the appropriate length of time to grieve. And again, it lasts about a year, and it is a roller coaster journey with those 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. Um, let's see if I've got anything else on this slide. Yeah, I think one last thing is that starting new traditions, maybe at holidays, anniversaries, birthdays, but especially holidays, we change the tradition because you'll never be able to replicate the old tradition because that person's no longer there. So Starting a new tradition, something I did, or just getting away, finding a cabin in the woods someplace. Here in Birmingham, we've got some mountains out of town, an hour or 2 hours out of town. We can grab a cabin, a VRBO, bed and breakfast, that kind of thing. Really helps just to take mind off things. I actually had a friend I suggested come visit me. He had lost his wife of 30 plus years marriage on Mother's Day this past May, May 10th. And he's a friend of mine I've known for 55 years, met in college, and we're very close friends. And I said, look, you need to get away, probably take your mind off things. Why don't you come here and visit? And he stayed about a week, and he was very, very thankful that he did so. And we, of course, enjoyed the visit as well. Continuing the journey of grief. Some people feel the journey is too long or too hard or too painful, and they might avoid places that remind them of their loved one. And they might even think of never going there again. They've no desire to, change a single item in their loved one's bedroom. That's another scenario. You see things probably on TV stories where usually a younger person in these cases has passed away and their bedroom is untouched. All the toys are still out, the bed's still made. It's as if they're still alive. And, those kind of things are okay for a little while. We'll talk about some other things that kind of go hand in hand with that. One of them is referred to commonly as a shrine. Some of these things are actually crutches, and there's nothing wrong with a crutch. I mean, I broke my ankle a few years ago and I was on crutches. I couldn't have gotten around without them, but crutches are a good thing. And if they want to leave that room for a while, that's okay. Um, so, again, let me talk about that shrine because that's something that a lot of people go through and it's kind of instinctive. And I did it too. I had a small bookshelf with mementos and pictures and other items that either belonged to my late wife, Kathy, or belonged to both of us, what have you. And I had it right outside the bedroom door. And it's commonly referred to as a shrine. And that helps bridge the gap of the loss and serves as a reminder. And certainly the items that are put on there are positive things that the person wants to see. And it kind of ushers them along that journey. Eventually, there comes a point in time where that will no longer serve a purpose, and that point in time will go off like a light bulb in the grieving person's mind, and they'll know when to take it down. Just like, for instance, items in a closet that belong to the loved one. You keep those for a while, and you're hesitant to part with them, but there comes a point in time where they know it's time, and they do. So, a shrine and these things that we're talking about that are crutches, it's not a bad thing. A crutch in this type of situation is not a bad thing. Um, and there's another thing called ambush that it may be, for instance, a siren. My late wife was taken away in an ambulance after she had her stroke, and for the first few years, if I was out and heard a siren, it would automatically remind me of that. So there's certain things that connect a person that's grieving to the loss of their loved one, depending on the nature and how they lost their loved one. Um, the best way to deal again with these things is just a little at a time. Whether it's the things in the closet, whether it may be a wedding ring if a spouse was lost, all those kind of things. No timetable, just handling a little bit at a time. And of course, a plug for Grief Share. Naturally, the program is amazing. It really is. The change we see in people attending the Grief Share program from the beginning to the end of the 14 weeks is absolutely remarkable. They come in and they're unable to even in some cases verbalize their story and their loss. And by the end of the 14 weeks, they're up in front of the class. We have a picture of their loved one on the big screen because we've been talking about that person for 14 weeks and we'd like to make a visual connection. And they have that, and they're up in front of that screen telling us a favorite memory of their loved one, sharing what their biggest takeaway was from the Grief Share program. and they bring their loved one's favorite dessert. And at the end of the final session that night, we have what I call a dessert supper, and it's a great time of sharing and fellowship. Excuse me. Relationships. Let's talk about relationships a little bit, both relationships of relatives and friends. A grieving person is probably going to be surprised to find that some of their relationships have changed. People they thought would remain close after the death, they've drifted away. People they didn't know well before, they've come closer to. Dealing with relationships can definitely be confusing during grief, but relationships are crucial to their healing. So, how does the death of a loved one affect their relations? Well, as I said, friendships may change. Be prepared for friendships, especially if it was a spousal loss and you maybe used to get together with another couple. That may change. Relatives may change. Again, especially in a loss of a spouse situation, that family, in many cases, is lost as well. That spouse's family, and that's something else to be prepared for. It doesn't have to happen. I think again, if the lines of communication are kept open, and the grieving person is able to reach out, and they had a good relationship prior to that, that should continue. Another thing that is affected by the death of a loved one, personally, are roles and responsibilities. Um, I had one child that was still in college, and another thing was a simple thing, taxes, another role and responsibility of an adult, an employed adult. I never calculated income taxes. My late wife did that, and it was a new thing for me. So I didn't figure the taxes out in their entirety. I would just gather all the information and input all the data and send it off to an accountant. But I never did that. And so roles and responsibilities will change. If there's kids still at home, that's going to change dramatically. Dad's going to become a little bit of mom. Mom's going to become a little bit of dad. Those kind of things. And bear in mind that friends, by and large, unless they've gone through a loss, will not understand this grief journey. And in some instances, the grieving person may need to let them go and explore new friendships. Just a fact of loss. And even within a family, the relationships within a family, if there's a large family, even family members grieve differently. We've had families in our grief share program. We had a mother and a father, and then two of their children. I think they had three children. The one was lost due to suicide, and so the two parents and the other two kids attended one of my classes, and they all grieve a little bit different. It's not unusual. Um, so be on guard for changes in both relationships that are family relationships and other friend relationships. A tip here at this point, one thing that helps a grieving family, after the first 30 days, contact drops off dramatically with the person that's grieving. And, everybody the first 30 days is making phone calls, coming by, dropping things off, providing meals, so on and so forth. I suggest marking on a person's calendar, mark on your calendar at 30 days to follow up with the person that's experienced the loss. I put it on my calendar at 30, 60, 90 days, and then periodically after that. Things you can do. I mean, you can always follow up, even if it's something as simple as a text or an email or a phone call. But things you can do, again, bring something by. I remember a box of bagels that mysteriously and suddenly appeared at my front door that was greatly appreciated. Some other folks after the loss came by to clean the house. Some people ordered catered dinners for us. And then gift cards was one of the easiest, but one of the most effective things because a gift card to a restaurant would generally get that person out of the house to go to the restaurant. And there was, nothing to prepare and nothing to clean up. So it was a triple play win. So gift cards are good things to give to a person that is grieving. Um, A couple other things on questions revolving around the loss. A lot of people ask why. They feel it's unfair, and they become angry. Some of them will become angry at the person that left them. I was a little angry, I think, at my father when he passed away because I'd spoken to him on the phone. He was in the hospital, but I'd spoken to him on the phone a few minutes earlier, and then I got a call later that day from a physician that had told me he passed, and I guess I was a little angry that I didn't get to say goodbye. So some of that anger is normal. Becoming angry with God is not abnormal by any means. If you read the Bible, you'll read stories in the Old Testament about Job and how he wrestled and was angry with God. But just be honest. Be honest with your friends when they ask how you're doing. Be honest with God when you communicate with Him. The friend of mine I mentioned, whose wife passed away on Mother's Day, went out with a group of my friends one afternoon for lunch, and they asked how he was doing, and he was honest. And I think it was a good thing to say because he wasn't in a state of denial. And he said, "I'm not doing well at all. I just lost my wife 3 months ago." So honesty is great, and just being upfront and listening to the grieving person without making suggestions. One other thing in this area is a hypersensitivity. Because you've lost a close person, there's a hypersensitivity to other people that are close to you. So, as an example, when my kids, would be maybe driving a long distance, even though they didn't live at home anymore, I would really, really get worried about them getting to their destination safely. And I guess that's what parents do to some extent. I still do today. My son has a motorcycle, which I wish he didn't have, and he's traveling to Virginia in a couple of weeks, and I'm probably going to worry the whole trip to Virginia and back. But there is a hypersensitivity that develops after the loss of one close person, and that's not to be unexpected by any means. Um, a little more on guilt and anger. I think just really that regret, guilt, and anger are three emotions that can kind of create barriers against the peace and healing that is available. It all revolves around that what if I hadn't, done this or asked that, or even things you say. Maybe they were things that you wish you hadn't said. I can remember one specifically still that I wish I hadn't told my late wife. It wasn't ugly or anything, but it certainly wasn't something. It's something I regretted saying. And maybe things you regret, a grieving person regrets not saying. You can go down those rabbit trails forever. They don't really result in any resolution. It's just better to allow yourself to be angry and get through that phase if that happens to be one of the phases that you're grieving. A few complicating factors on top of all this, as if there aren't enough already, huh? There will be nightmares for some folks. There will be flashbacks for some folks. Dreams, ambushes. The ambush is simply maybe stumbling across a picture as you're going through a drawer and you find a picture of your loved one. Or maybe even a food or a place or a smell can come out of nowhere. A sound, maybe a person kind of looks like the loved one that was lost. All these are what are commonly referred to as ambushes, something to be prepared for and to keep an eye on. Dreams, some people have a lot of dreams about their loved one, others have none. I had a few. It's not to be unexpected. It's something that's perfectly normal. Be prepared for and know that eventually it will pass. One of the biggest tips to getting through all of this is remembering the good times. And even if you have to write them down and make notes of them, remembering the good times squeezes out the loss in the final days that may have transpired prior to the loss. They're a silver lining to the cloud. Just all these good times. It's something worth cultivating and remembering so that those tears that are in the initial stages will end up turning into to smiles. Just a couple of words on being stuck in grief, because I know time is beginning to move forward pretty quickly here. Um, a person grieving beyond 1 or 2 years still has the shrine or the untouched bedroom, or visits the grave all the time, or is continually talking about their loved one, or maybe working long hours or just staying overly busy. If it drags on, that is an issue, and it is something that needs to be worked on. The usual things like exploring new relationships, dwelling on positives, avoiding certain people or places that could be reminders of your loved one, and or isolating, all those things may not pull a person through, in which case professional help might be something that should be sought after. And you'll see in the last couple slides here, there are some recommendations in terms of professional help or one-on-one counseling can be had. There's nothing wrong with that. It serves certain people to resolve certain issues. The Grief Share program is great. As a matter of fact, we have people coming from one-on-one counseling to us because their experience with one-on-one counseling may not have been something that the counselor was able to identify well with in terms of loss. And I'm not condemning counseling by any means, but just basically keep the options open. And if it looks like a person is getting stuck in their grief, then personal one-on-one counseling would be in order. Let's see. Some other things here, how to move forward successfully when you really can't think beyond your nose. A to-do list helps. Just writing down 1 or 2 things that need to be done that day and getting them checked off. Even the simple matter of checking them off the list is encouraging. Planning for various anniversaries and holidays, as I mentioned before. New traditions help in that area. Those that may have been going to church or synagogue, uh, it's a good idea maybe to arrive late and leave early so you don't find yourself in a situation where you're kind of being quizzed. Sitting in the back is okay, or sitting with a friend maybe who'll run interference for them and help them interact with other people. Um, and identifying a place ahead of time where they can quickly exit to go if they're emotionally overwhelmed. As this journey of grief goes on, I think helping others is a good strategy as well in the latter portions of grief recovery. Helping others is it. I never thought I would be leading a grief share program here in Birmingham, but I did, and did it for 12 years. It was very, it was gratifying. I felt blessed to have been able to touch hundreds of people's lives in the process. And volunteering, it doesn't have to be with a grief organization, but just getting out to volunteer and helping others really speeds along recovery. Um, and let's see. Again, the big takeaways, I can't say it often enough, is no specific length of time, not a set number of phases of grief, and everyone grieving differently. I'm going to skip this slide. And what do we live for now? Uh, that's when the grief is finally over. Where do you go? People aren't really sure where they see themselves, but moving forward is a necessity. It's a must. And they don't get over it, but they manage the grief to the point where they're managing and controlling the grief rather than the grief managing and controlling them. And hopefully today I provided some tools or resources to give to you to assist yourself or others in that process. None of this happens all at once. It does take a while, and it is a new normal. It's something that just, I'm not a patient person, but patience is a virtue in this kind of a situation. And eventually, the person will get down that road to the light at the end of the tunnel. So, I guess in summary, I've got a couple of summary slides here. Person has to grieve. They can't stuff it and not do it. It's a part of the recovery process. Everyone grieves differently, as I said, with different time frames for grief. One specific time frame does not exist. Not everyone experiences that set number of phases of grief. I actually caution people not to read those books. And then remember that the more, this is a good thing, a phrase to remember, the more you love, the more you grieve. Additionally, this is very important. I didn't mention this earlier. Avoid big changes, if at all possible, the first year, whether it's changing jobs, selling a house, all sorts of things. Don't have time to go into detail here, but I was about to make some changes that I didn't. I'm glad that I didn't. Probably the most important thing there is that if it's a spousal loss, the old rule of thumb about not dating for a year is quite valid. I violated that and wish I hadn't. And it was brought to my attention by my kids. So I went to them on three different occasions in three different settings and apologized and asked for their forgiveness. And I was too early in doing that. Um, be prepared for intervention referrals, counselors, psychologists, suicide prevention. That's in the reference pages coming up. Understand that life will never be the same in the new normal. The scar remains as a reminder, but they will arrive at that light at the end of the tunnel if they're patient and work at this recovery process so that they can manage and control their grief instead of it managing and controlling them. Two books, great books to suggest to somebody. Zig Ziglar, Confessions of a Grieving Christian. His daughter died in her 30s. Zig Ziglar, you may know, was he's no longer with us, but he was an international businessman, a lecturer, is an author. Any one of his books is a tremendous read. This is a good one. Talks about losing his wife when she was in her 30s. And then a daily book for someone who likes to have something positive to start their day with, Grieving the Loss of Someone You Love by Ray Mitch. Most of those apply to almost every loss scenario, most of the daily little devotional pieces in there. Great book. As a matter of fact, I read through that one twice before I gave it back to the person that loaned it to me. And then the resources, and this is something we're going to get to you. If you have questions about anything pertaining to grief, you can call me direct at the number shown on the screen. I'm available at that number 24/7. It's 205 908 6529. Or you can email me at from morning, that's morning, MOURNING, to joy@gmail.com. If you'd like to explore more about grief share or suggest a grief share or suggest someone to grief share, suggest grief share to someone, excuse me, they can go to griefshare.org. The first thing that comes up is a place to put their zip code, and it will pull up all the locations that are running the program near them. It will pull them up both virtual and live and in person, and they can choose either one. And then the third one I would recommend would be the Stephen Ministries. Those have quite a good reputation. There's some other resources here as well, here in Alabama, in the Birmingham area's community grief support, also Means Family Counseling. I know some of these I'm going to list are local Birmingham, but a lot of them do over the phone or via Zoom as well, like we're doing. There's Restore Counseling. There's a senior talk line for those older folks. There's also a Teen Link line, and there's a kids helpline as well. There's the Amelia Center down here in Birmingham at UAB Children's Hospital. There's suicide prevention and crisis hotlines. There's a Legacy of Hope, which used to be called the Alabama Organ Donation Group, and that is something. Actually, my wife was an organ donor, my late wife, and I eventually became an organ donor. And quick story, her eye tissue saved the eyesight of two individuals, and her tissue from her knee ligaments saved a kid who was on scholarship for soccer in college and got her playing again. Oh, one last thing, Social Security. There are benefits. Best thing to do is call the national Social Security number. This is a local number here, but when I went down to Social Security locally, and no matter where a person goes locally, they may not get correct information. I did not. I missed out on several years of benefits totaling thousands of dollars. I would recommend if you don't get the answers you're looking for or the benefits you're looking for through a local Social Security office, call the toll-free 1-800 number. I know it's a government agency, and there's a lot of layers to the government, but this one went and worked very, very smoothly and got me benefits that I should have had from the beginning. So, lastly, since we've talked a little bit about my late wife, there's a picture of her, Kathy. We were married for 34 years. And a year and a half later, the Lord blessed me with more than I deserve in life with a second marriage, and that's my present wife, Marti. So I think we're off the racetrack and now have time for Q&A.
And we have some questions. Many people have been asking throughout the presentation for your contact, and you've given those, and we'll be supplying those when we send out the certificates. We
Sure.
had a question from Erica Alonso who asked, is grief created equal? Does the manner in which someone loses a loved one impact a person's, see if I can read down, impact? In other words, does grief matter?
Yeah, the way the person is lost, the manner in which they're lost, I suppose it does. The one I'm familiar with, Erica, is I've always wondered through grief share classes if a person being taken away suddenly versus a person with a terminal illness. And I've come to the conclusion, at least in that case, that the grief is the same. The level of grief is the same. I can't speak to the loss through an accident or a murder. I can tell you that in the grief share program, it does address losses, not just a result of an accident or, like me, an old person that has been married for a long time loses their spouse. We've also seen, as I mentioned earlier, an uptick in losses from suicide and drug overdoses and murders. So I'm sure that some of those do have a little bit greater impact, but really there's a lot of commonalities, and in most cases, the level of grief is about the same.
Lisa Hurd says, I volunteered for over 11 years at the Doogie Center in Portland, Oregon, and worked with the littles, children ages 3 to 5, and learned so much about processing grief through a child's eyes. So honest with their feelings, and lots of play therapy to help them process the death of their loved one. And she says she's referred Grief Share several times, and her clients truly loved the process and the healing it afforded them.
Yeah, Lisa makes a good point that you do learn a lot. We're not, most of us here, probably professionally degreed psychologists or psychiatrists or therapists, but the school of hard knocks, and I hate to use that terminology, but that experience over time really does benefit an individual. So yes, and thank you for the referrals to Grief Share. It is an amazing program.
That's it for our questions. There are numerous comments. I encourage you to read the chat room yourself and just see all of the thanks. I'll read now again the link for those of you who are taking the evaluation, which you must do in order to get a certificate. So simply being on this broadcast does not entitle you to a certificate. You must do the evaluation. It's password protected. The link is https colon // www.surveymonkey.com lowercase r / all uppercase letters and numbers, Z as in zoo, S as in Sam, 5, W, R, 2. And the password today is normal, as in entering the new normal. And that's with a capital N, then lowercase ORMAL. Normal is the password. And so many comments thanking you, and particularly for thanking you for sharing your personal story. One, Latasha Tony says, a great presentation, and Kevon Stage has a one-man show called Grief Sucks. It is about his personal experiences and it's very insightful.
I love it. That's great. I love that title. Well, it was a pleasure being here. I apologize for having to you have to sit in this race car as we went through 14 weeks of material in about an hour. And if anyone does want to contact me, feel free to do so. Probably the best way would be to email me at that email address that's on those slides or that you'll be getting. And again, it's from morning to joy at gmail.com. That's from morning, MOURNING to joy morning to joy at gmail.com. I'd be glad to answer those emails. And if you can't do that for whatever reason, want to give me a call, I am available at that number 205 908 6529 24/7.
And I have to apologize to everyone on the broadcast. I hope we haven't lost anybody. I gave you the wrong link. The link is https:// www.surveymonkey.com/lowercase r/ numbers and letters uppercase 8, Z as in zoo, Y, R, S as in Sam, 8, B as in boy. The actual link ends in 8, Z as in zoo, Y, R, S as in Sam, 8B. And I'm posting that in the chat room now. Please forgive my mistake. And I hope it doesn't cost you a CEU. Thank you, everyone, for catching that. My mistake. I was in a hurry, and that's what happens when you get in a hurry. Please join us on 2 weeks from today, on Tuesday at noon. We'll have a refresher course, Hospice 101, with Demetrius Hoyt, who leads a Birmingham area hospice agency as its administrator. So, for those of you looking for a brush up, maybe some new information as well, join us in a couple of weeks. For everyone that's with us today, thank you so much. And thank you, Peter Jackson, for an enlightening and really well done and thoughtful presentation.
Thank you, Sean. Hope to be able to do it again sometime in the future.
We look forward to it. Y'all have a great couple of weeks, and we'll see you again soon. Beat the heat, and y'all be good. Thanks.